My name is Ramona Houston. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I work as an entrepreneur. I have been a college professor at Morehouse College, which is a historically black college and university located here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I served as a professor, assistant professor in history. I was a tenured track professor. Morehouse College is a college devoted to educating, nurturing, and developing African American men. So it's the only HBCU that's all male. And I really enjoyed working at Morehouse. Loved my students. I love the institution, which I feel is a sacred place and space, and really liked my colleagues. However, I wasn't totally fulfilled by teaching only. So I decided to move from academia to pursue other interests where I monetize my scholarly area of expertise. I'm an American historian, 20th century, and I focus on African American and Mexican American history, particularly race relations and civil rights, and those two communities' efforts to create social change. So I consider myself an activist scholar who uses her knowledge of history to help individuals and groups create synergy between the African American and Latino communities so that they can work together to create social change. And so by monetizing my expertise, I write and speak and provide cultural competencies to groups to help them create synergy between different groups. I've worked on all levels of government. I've worked for the city of Atlanta under the Honorable Mayor Maynard Jackson. I've worked for the county as in the Department of Recreation, where I was their primary project manager. I've worked as special assistant for the chairman of Fulton County, most recently, and then I've worked in federal government as a member of the board of the Foreign Service for the U.S. Department of State, where I helped determine promotion for people in the Foreign Service. So in terms of my role as a project manager and as a scholar, I've used my skills to help government entities as well as individuals in their community outreach and engagement projects. So, but in terms of speaking, I speak to quite a few groups, mostly nonprofits and colleges and universities who have people who are interested in community engagement and social change. Basically, as an entrepreneur, I do three things. I'm a scholar, which I have monetized my expertise as a historian. I am also an educator, which I teach students strategies for college success. And then lastly, I'm a community engagement strategist where I design, manage, and execute special projects, programs, and initiatives, particularly in education, politics, and government and event planning. So the skills that I have developed in those three areas are the ability to do research and really understand the whole issue that is involved in whether it's helping different groups work together or whether it's organizing a specific project or program. My writing and reading skills, of course, being able to synthesize information and to be able to write it and articulate it in a way that people really understand it. Also dealing with race relations, it's a very sensitive subject, so you really have to be a wordsmith and understand, as a historian, I understand that words matter. And so you have to be very careful about how you articulate issues, how you address very sensitive issues in terms of cultural competencies and what other groups think about other groups. So being a wordsmith and being able to understand the political ramification for what terms you use and when to address certain things. I think my communication skills in terms of public speaking and writing and persuasion. So those are some of the skills that I bring as a historian to the work that I do on an everyday basis. one of the things as an individual, I'm married. So I have the fortune of having a person who's there to support me in my transition. The critique that I have, or the advice that I would give to people who want to make transitions, is that they really have to be involved really intensely in the iteration process of their work. And what I mean by that is you evaluate, and you make adjustments, and then you incorporate those adjustments and do it again and over again until you get to where you want to be. And I think as scholars or academicians, we tend to do more analysis, and we're more concerned with the process versus the results. So the change for me, the advice that I give people in terms of entrepreneurship, is to be able to be and think like business people and get to results much more quickly. The best analogy that I can give for that are people who, let's say a college has a presidential, they want a new president. Most colleges, of course, faculty are a major component of the college, but on the board side, it's mostly run by business people. And so business people, they'll say, we want a president, this is who we want, and they'll vet that person, but they get to their decision very quickly. And sometimes that aggravates faculty, because faculty want to go through this long process. Did you have the committee meetings? Did you do this? Did you do that? Before they come to the conclusion. So it's a very different kind of environment, and as an entrepreneur, you need to do iteration in a way that you get to results more quickly. So for me, my advice to students, students and professionals who want to make a career change, is to understand the results that they want to create in that process. My typical day is writing in the morning, and whatever I'm writing, whether it's an article, whether it's a blog, I just finished my first book on college success that manuscript, where I'm looking forward to publishing that. So the first part of my day, the first few hours, is writing. And then the second part of my day is really about developing the workshops and the materials that I use for different, whether it's a speaking engagement or if I'm doing some kind of training. And then the last part of the day, because I love project management so much, and I'm just a logistical person, I like details, that the last part of the day I can really lose myself into doing projects. And so because I have more fun doing projects versus writing, even though I'm a very good writer, I find that I cannot switch those tasks. That for me, there's certain things that work better at certain hours of the day. When I do a project, I have to understand the history, the people involved, what their interests are, because everybody has an interest in a project, in dealing with stakeholders. So I use that skill as a project manager, but also as a writer. When I write, I'm very cognizant all the time of what arguments I want to make. And how I support that argument. Like here at the AHA yesterday, we had a great debate in the business meeting over a resolution that was on the table. And what I like so much about that is hearing all sides of the debate. And the thing with working in organizations with scholars, we really support our information with a lot of evidence, right? And so that's what I do as a writer, whether I'm writing a blog or whether I'm writing an article for some kind of other publication. I try to be very clear in what my arguments are. So I think that the skills that I bring as a historian are prevalent in all the three areas that I work in. I personally, I am the conference queen. I love conferences and professional meetings and organizations. My biggest advice to anybody in whatever career they in is to join and attend those professional meetings and conferences in their area, because that's one place that you're going to find all the experts in that particular field. Now, for me, and I explain this to my students and others when I speak on different aspects of college success. For me, I'm an American historian. So, but within that, I focus on African American and Mexican American history. Within that is race relations and civil rights. So the organizations that I choose to join are not only scholarly organizations and attend their conferences, but also organizations that focus on the empowerment of those communities, civil rights organizations, community organizations, as well as government entities which make the laws. So, for example, I will say I'm a member of the American Historical Association. I may consider joining the Organization of American Historians, the National Association of Chicana and Chicano Studies, Association for the Study of Afro-American Life and History. On the civil rights side, it might be Rainbow Push. It could be the National Council La Raza. In government, it would be NALEO, National Association of Latino Elected Officials, Georgia Association of Latino Officials. So there's a host. Civil rights would be Urban League, maybe, even though they don't consider themselves a civil rights organization, LULAC, League of United Latin American Citizens. So if I'm attending all of those conferences, do you see, whether they're government, politics, educators, or scholars, then I'm meeting the experts in all of those fields. And so for me, my advice would be define where you want to be and what field you want to be in, and then determine the professional organizations, conferences, or meetings, and then attend those, and then you'll get to meet a host of people. So it would take me 50 years to meet those people, right, on an individual basis. But if I attend a professional meeting and conference, oh my goodness, I'm going to see there's a host of historians I could see at this conference, right? If I'm at a civil rights conference, I could see the civil rights leaders of the country. If I'm with government, I'm going to meet a host of congressional, state, and local representatives. So you just have to define what you want to do, and then what those organizations are in those professional organizations and professional meetings that you can get to meet the people and then expand your network. I like not having the same thing every day. You're pretty rigid as a college professor. You're teaching, some people would disagree, but you're teaching U.S. history and you're teaching the same thing all the time. You know, you might get a few different perspectives, but as a project manager, as a writer, as an educator teaching strategies for college success, there are different ways and methods you can do all of those things, and every day is a different project versus having the rigidity of the same old thing. And also, I find that academia, in my opinion, tends to be like a fishbowl, more like an intellectual fishbowl, and that we have not been able to relate to the public as much as we should as historians. So, for example, when I talked about learning the cutting edge work that your field is doing, yesterday I went to a session on podcasting. Like, how do historians, you were there, that was a good one. How do historians reach the general public versus just writing for each other? And so for me, I like the process of being out in the world, if you will, instead of just on an island. My advice for graduate students who want to look beyond the professorate is to really define what it is they want to do. Like, it's only been recently that I could really articulate community engagement strategist or project manager. I knew what I did. I'm excellent in planning and organizing and execution, but it wasn't a title, if you will, for those kind of people, because when you look at project management, most people think of IT or they think of construction. They don't think of people who actually organize projects, other types of projects. So I would define what it is that I really want to do, what my gifts and talents are, and then find or identify places and spaces that need those talents. And then begin by volunteering and articulating it to other individuals, and then the ball will get rolling from there. What I know now that I wish someone had told me was understanding who I am as a woman and as a person of color in negotiating my space. I really like Lean In. It's a book that really speaks to women and how we go for or do not go for our professional aspirations. And that most of the time we as women, we stop short in multiple ways. Whether it's negotiating our salaries, whether it's pursuing stretch jobs, whether it's self-confidence and self-assurance, that we tend to question ourselves or think we have to be 100% qualified before we go for something. And I think some of those arguments can be also relevant to people of color in terms of how we all have a socialization process. So I wish someone had given me certain advice as a professional much earlier, so that I could address those things that she addresses in the book. Now, like I said, I know there are multiple criticisms, and some of them are valid because this is an elite woman talking about elite concepts. But I think for the most part, her understanding how you should negotiate your space in the space that you want to be. I think that for individuals, we all have to decide what we want out of our lives. And that many times we're given this idea of what success is, but you have to define success for yourself and understand that your evolution or your development to become your best self is an evolutionary process. And that for some, their goal is to be a professor, a tenured professor, and that's good for them. But there are some of us who enjoy history, but there are so many other things that we want to do. So the two pieces of advice I would give is to define success for yourself and decide what you want to do, but also understand that it's an evolutionary process, and you may get to one point and then realize, hey, this was good, but I want to do something else and do something else and do something else until you do all the things you want to do. It doesn't have to be one career path. And I think that I don't know if I should say this, but I will. But when I was a professor at Morehouse, I had a conversation with one of the other professors, and this professor stated, I'm too afraid to leave because this is not all that I want to do, but I'm too afraid. And but it's not stretching my abilities the way I want to be stretched. And sometimes we get stuck in a place where we're doing what's comfortable instead of getting out of our comfort zone and doing what allows us to fly. So my advice would be to all students, graduate students and professionals, even if they're professionals who are well along in their professional careers, find out what makes you fly and go for it.